Hello, learners. Today I am going to teach you a very interesting lesson from Honeycomb, Class 7, Lesson 7, The Invention of Vita-Wonk, written by Rolda. This story is based on science fiction. It depicts creative and fantastic ideas. This lesson is an extract taken from the book Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator. Now, let us know about the author. Rolda was a British novelist, short story writer, poet, and screenwriter. He was born on 13 September 1916 in Wales to affluent Norwegian immigrant parents and spent most of his life in England. His books have sold more than 250 million copies worldwide. Short stories The Landlady, Lamb to the Slaughter, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So, read his books, they are very interesting. Now, before we read the lesson, let us understand these questions and answer them. Who are the oldest people you know? Yes, you are right. Your grandparents. So they are old, right? What are the oldest things you have in your house? So just hurry up, see what are the oldest things in your house. Ask your mom. Right. So your mother might be saying that this I have purchased some 10 years back and like that, isn't it? And in your city, find out the oldest things, town or village, and how old are they. Just find out these things, children. Have you ever wished that you were older? Have you wished that you could grow up in a hurry? Did you feel at any time that you want to grow up very soon? If at all, just write your views. Why do you want to grow up? Right? Now, before we read and understand the lesson, let us know clearly what does discovery and invention mean. Okay, often children get confused with these two words. Now let us know about discovery. A discovery is recognizing something that already exists for the first time, that nobody has found before. So already in nature it is already existed and that someone discovers it which has not been found by anyone. Like who Copernicus, he discovered that the earth moves around the sun. So already in nature it is there, but it is this particular man Copernicus who discovered that the earth moves around the sun. Now coming to the word invention. So what is an invention? It is creating something totally new with one's own ideas and development. So creating certain thing which is not there and creating by their own self and doing research on that. So here we come across Thomas Alva Edison who invented light bulb. Okay, so I think discovery and invention are clear to you. Yes, now let's move on to the lesson. The invention of Vita-Wonk. Here, Vita-Wonk is being invented, right? In this lesson, we will find who invented it and what made him to invent Vita-Wonk. Here, the main character is Mr. Willy Wonka, who shares his views on his invention with Charlie. Now let's read the lesson. Mr. Willy Wonka begins by inventing Wonka White, which makes people younger. But Wonka White is too strong. So some people disappear because their age becomes minus. One person actually becomes minus 87, which means he's got to wait 87 years before he can come back. Mr. Willy Wonka must invent a new thing. Now let's see its explanation. Mr. Willy Wonka is a scientist who has invented Wonka White, which makes people younger. The medicine is too strong, and a person volunteered to drink this medicine, and he became so young that his age became minus. So here minus means, that means he had to wait to be reborn. How many years? That is 87 years he has to wait to come back to the world. So it was concluded that the medicine was too strong to be used by the people. So finally it was a failure. So now Mr. Willy Wonka had to invent something else. Mr. Wonka said, "So once again I rolled up my sleeves and set to work." Set to work means began to work. Once again I squeezed my brain, searching for the new recipe. Recipe is instructions for making something. I had to create age to make people old. That is old, older, oldest. Ha ha! I cried. For now the ideas were beginning to come. What is the oldest living thing in the world? What lives longer than anything else? So here Mr. Willy Wonka explains to Charlie how he had invented Vita-Wonk. Mr. Wonka wants to invent a new medicine which could make people old. He asks himself two questions. Mr. Wonka told Charlie that he rolled up his sleeves and began to work. He squeezed his brain. So he squeezed his brain means here he thought what he has to do it. He was thinking. He squeezed his brain and searching for a new recipe. So what is the new recipe? He has to invent something new in order to whatever the failure which he had done, that is by inventing Wonka White. So now he has to replace that because people are disappearing. So they have to be reborn. So in order to be reborn again, he has to make them old. So here he squeezed his brain so that he could think of a new recipe which can make people old by creating age. He wanted to make people old, older, oldest. He was very much excited as the ideas were flooding his mind. Now, the first question which has come to his mind is, what is the oldest living thing in the world? So he need to find out. So what is the oldest thing? And the second question, what lives longer than anything else? So these two questions has something to do with his second invention, right? A tree, Charlie said. Right you are, Charlie. But what kind of a tree? Not a Douglas fir, not a oak, not the cedar. No, no, my boy. It is a tree called the Bristol cone pine that grows upon the slopes of Wheeler Peak in Nevada, USA. You can find Bristol cone pines on Wheeler Peak today that are over 4,000 years old. This is fact, Charlie. Ask any dendrochronologist you like and look that word up in the dictionary when you get home. Will you please? So this word means is a professional who studies tree rings to determine dates and the chronological order of the past events. So it shows the age of that rings show the age of the tree. So that started me off. I jumped into the great glass elevator and rushed all over the world collecting special items from the oldest living things. So here you can see the image. This is the great glass elevator in which Mr. Willy Wonka he rushes all over the world in order to collect special items. Right? Now let us see its explanation. Charlie said that a tree was the oldest living thing in the world and it could live longer than anything else. Mr. Wonka told Charlie that he was right. Then he asked him what kind of tree was required. He said the correct type of tree wasn't the Douglas fir or the oak or the cedar. He said that a pine tree, a Bristol cone pine tree, was the correct one. Where does this tree grow? Yes, you are right. It grows on the slopes of Wheeler Peak in Nevada, USA. These trees are over 4,000 years old. Mr. Wonka said that it was a fact and that Charlie could ask any dendrochronologist in case he did not believe him. Mr. Wonka asked Charlie to look up the meaning of the word dendrochronologist, then said to Charlie that after gathering all the information, he jumped into the great glass elevator and rushed all over the world collecting the oldest living things. Right? A pint of sap from a 4,000-year-old Bristol cone pine. So, sap is a watery fluid of a plant. The toenail clippings from a 168-year-old Russian farmer called Petrovich Grigorovich. An egg laid by a 200-year-old tortoise belonging to the king of Tonga. A pint of sap from a 4,000-year-old Bristol cone pine. So here you can see Bristol cone pine tree which is 4,000 year old, and sap is the watery fluid of a plant. So here Mr. Willy Wonka is collecting all these things in order to make a recipe, that is his invention, that is Vita-Wonk. Okay, so pint here refers to 2 cups. It is a measurement. So first he collects 2 cups of sap from Bristol cone pine tree. Okay, so what is its age? Right, 4,000 years old. Now the second one is he collects toenail clippings. Clippings are small pieces. Small pieces of toenail he collects from 168-year-old Russian farmer. And what is his name, children? Yes, Petrovich Grigorovich. So this is the second item. Then the next one is an egg laid by a 200-year-old tortoise. So that egg, so to which country it belongs? To the king of Tonga. It belongs to the king of Tonga, right? The tail of a 51-year-old horse in Arabia. The whiskers of a 36-year-old cat called crumpets. Whiskers are the hair on the animal's mouth. An old flea which had lived on crumpets for 36 years. Crumpets is pieces of bread. So next, the fourth item which he collects is tail of a 51-year-old horse in Arabia. You can see the tail, that he collects it. And later the next one he collects the whiskers, the hair of the animal's mouth. That whiskers he collects. And what is the age of the cat? It is 36 years old and it is called crumpets, right? You can see the image. The next one he also collects an old flea which had lived on crumpets. Crumpets is on pieces of bread it lives. How many years it lived? 36 years. So that old flea also he collects. So now till here he has totally collected how many items? 6 items which are old, right? The tail of a 207-year-old giant rat from Tibet. The black teeth of a 97-year-old grimalkin living in a cave on Mount Popocatépetl. The knuckle bones of a 700-year-old cataloo from Peru. So here grimalkin means an old female cat. Knuckle bones, a bone of knuckles. Now let's see its explanation. So here the next item which Mr. Willy Wonka collects is a tail of a giant rat from Tibet country. So what is the age of the giant rat, children? Yes, right, 207 years old. Now the next item which he collects is the black teeth of a 97-year-old grimalkin. You can see the picture here. So he collects the black teeth of this old female cat which is 97 years old. And where does it live? In a cave on a mountain, Popocatépetl. So you can see the mountain image also. Now the next one he collects is the knuckle bones. So knuckle bones, here you can see the picture of Catalu, and that is from Peru, and it is 700 years old. So all these he collects. So all these items he had to collect in order to create Vita-Wonk. So there were total of 9 items that were scattered all over the world. So he goes in a great glass elevator to collect these items. Right? I hope children all of you have understood this lesson, and here ends part 1, and in my next video you can watch part 2. We will see how Mr. Willy Wonka, with all these items, how he invents a new medicine which could make people old. Is this clear? Okay. Thank you, children.